Flag salute. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wanna Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Do we have any need for translation? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go on to approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
And I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Okay, we'll go on to public comment. Have we got any public comment tonight? Okay, and then we'll go on to recognition.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Ed Peterson forward, our OSD Director of Communications, and Ed's going to share some information about our band from Othello High School.
Good evening. I had hoped the band could be with us tonight, but I think as we talk about them, you'll understand why they needed a break, and we'll get them in here pretty soon to talk to you themselves about their experience this month. But our band has been really, really busy. They've been in a parade every weekend this month, and not just locally. They've been to Pendleton, Oregon. They've been to, they were in the Othello Parade. They were in the Autumn Leaf Parade in Leavenworth yesterday. They've been really, really busy, working 7 days a week, practicing before school, after school. I mean, they've marched past my house on Sunday a few times, probably trying to wake me up, and that's okay. And so I wanted to really recognize them for their efforts this week, and we'll share this clip from the board meeting with them as well, so that they can hear our thoughts and yours if you want to share anything with them. But we do have a video clip that I sent to Marissa from this weekend in Leavenworth, if she wants to play that. So that was toward the end of the parade there. I'm glad my phone has image stabilization on it, because I had jogged chasing after them for about 3 blocks to try to get in front of them to get that shot. But it takes a whole army of people to get them there. So it's not just Mr. Ludi and Mr. Hoffmeister. They do a great job with the kids, but they've got a whole team of volunteers that help them out. Adam Janes is a big help. There's just a lot of parents that are involved in getting them the places they need to go, making sure the uniforms look right, making sure the box truck gets there with their instruments, and that they all get on the bus on time. And it is a labor-intensive process from the beginning. They start before school starts in the summer. They start marching on the track weeks before school starts to get ready for these parades, and then to get ready for all the sports events that they come to, and they're a hard-working group of kids. So I wanted to make sure we recognize them for that, but also to invite the board to share any thoughts that they have about the band, so we can share this video with them too.
Now, my understanding is they had a placing at one of the current parades that they went to?
I've heard that they had a placing at every parade that had judging. I haven't heard about Leavenworth yet, so I don't know results for that. But in Pendleton, they were first among the bands in Pendleton. And we actually got some feedback from community members at Pendleton about how impressed they were with our band, not just the music, but their behavior and their decorum while they were there as well. So that was really good to get and pass along.
When I first moved to town, I didn't live way north of, on the north side like I do now, and I used to live kind of in the school core, and we used to get to hear the marching bands from the middle school, and we could hear from the high school, and I love being able to hear that. So if you want to tell them they could march further north, we would like to hear them other places too, because I think they're doing an amazing job, and I love it that they're able to travel so much and represent. They're doing great.
I actually had to stop what I was doing because they marched by me on Saturday when I was getting ready for the parade, and I took a video of them. I thought it was really impressive. They actually, when we were at Cookies and Combos, we had a some band students come up to us and ask us if they're going to get a little bit more money for some stuff. So I just told
Imagine
them.
who put them up to that.
So I just told them, talk to your principal, and then they'll work it up, the chain of command. So
They can talk to their student reps, and their student reps can talk to the board, and there you go.
There you go.
Well, I'm gonna be completely honest, but I haven't even seen the band yet. But I was there at the parade volunteering for the Othello leadership, and when I saw them play, I was actually really impressed. Though, considering that they walked that far, carrying heavy instruments, I know it's not easy, but really amazing job to them.
But you're going to be at homecoming this week, right?
I believe so.
They sound fabulous. They are getting stronger and stronger just to prove that their practice is really coming out in the end results. I love it at elementary schools when the band is coming by. Those kids run to the fence. They look out, they wave, they cheer. They're so excited. And that, I'm sure that's for both sides, the younger and the older. It just makes them feel so good. But they are doing a great job. I just think we should be very proud of them.
Sometimes I think that the band gets a little bit of the short end of the stick. I mean, they're playing, but everyone's watching the football players or they're watching the basketball players play when they're at events at the high school. But the minute the band isn't there, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And it's like, where is the band? Like, the band is the excitement. It's the heartbeat. It's everything that creates the unity in the crowd. Like, the band is so important. So anytime they're feeling like nobody even cares about us, that is so not true. They're so important, and they play such a vital role in school spirit. And I'm so proud of them for the parades that they've been in, and for the way that they represent themselves, and for just the job that they do in bringing school spirit to a game. Because without the band, the game is like just boring. The band really brings the hype. So congratulations to the band. And I wish that they were here, and hopefully they get to come soon and see us, because I would love to see them and tell them to their face how proud I am of them. Great job.
I don't know about boring. A good football game is still a good football game.
I
But
mean-
the band definitely adds a lot to it. And every time we don't have them at an event, I mean, every time, somebody will ask me over the social media, hey, how come the band wasn't there?
Yep.
They'll send me an email. Why don't you guys let the band play at everything? Well, we would love them to.
Yeah.
And we pass those along, so hopefully we hear more and more of them. They do sound good. They work
Yes,
hard.
they really do.
And not just the band members themselves, but all their parents and all the
Mhm.
volunteers. It's a lot of work to transport them, if they gotta stay over, et cetera. And they're representing our community very well. They're very much appreciated.
They had a big cheering section where I was at on Front Street in Leavenworth over the weekend. The locals liked them. Our town was represented well. We had a good crowd there and following them down the street. So they hopefully heard that and felt loved.
Great. Thank you. Board member discussion. I don't have a legislative report, but I know the general session for WASDA was held this week. I tried to get some updates, and they were still loading the updates, so hopefully next meeting I could have some of the new stances that WASDA will be standing on and bring those to you. The other one we got there is the optional reschedule student board rep interviews. Tentative for November 3rd.
So I just wanted to check with you guys. We have it currently scheduled for November 3rd, which is I want to say it's a Friday. We already have you guys for a site visit on October 30th. And then November 3rd would be the interviews, and then November 6th would be another site visit. So I just want to make sure that you guys are okay still having those interviews on November 3rd. Or if you guys want to reschedule it or just leave it.
Is it during the day?
Yeah, it would be probably 11 to 1, which is what we did last year. And I guess it would also be dependent on how many students apply.
And we have a site visit the 31st, is that what we said?
30th, Monday the
30th?
30th.
It would be a lot better for me if it was a little bit later in November. The 3rd is not potentially great for me. I'd be there if I could, but.
One of the other things we could do, it would make it a longer day, but on the 30th, we're at Othello High School. We could have the interviews after the site visit, just do them that same day.
I would prefer that.
That would work for me,
That
too.
works. I'm on call, so.
I mean, if we're already gonna be there, I would prefer to do that, so that it's not like another day from work and all that kind of stuff.
All right, so we'll talk with the administrators over at Othello High School. We'll adjust the application deadline for the students, and then we'll communicate with you at the first board meeting in October and solidify the times and all of that.
Okay.
Okay.
I just have one question. Is that going to include letting DOHS know too, if we're going to
Absolutely.
be at
Yeah,
the
we'll
high
make sure
school?
that those students are able to apply as well.
Okay, is there any more there for board member discussion? Okay, then we'll go on to student representative reports. Sebastian.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. But I would like to inform you all that Jaden won't be here today, but she wanted me to share with you on what we received for Cookies Your Conversation. We received a lot of feedback from students, and the most popular demand was mostly SmartPass. So at the high school, we have a bathroom system called SmartPass. Basically, you fill out a form on your computer, and it basically gives you a timer for 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. So it knows which bathroom you're at because you enter your classroom from your departing location and your destination, which is, it could be the senior hallway bathroom, the portable bathrooms, or just any bathroom that's nearest to your classroom. A lot of students don't like the fact that they only have 5 minutes and they're limited to 2 passes a day. I agree with that because if you need to do your business, you need to take your time. But majority of the students agreed that 7 to 10 minutes is a reasonable time frame, and we should have like an emergency time frame. Basically, let's say you need to go to the bathroom really bad, but you're 5th in line. There's an emergency button option where automatically you can go, but you're limited to about maybe 3 or 4 every trimester or half year. Some more feedback we received is that the girl locker room should have free feminine products. We should get a lot more peer support and a more later start time since the high school students start a little more later than others, and that we should get more snack vending machine options and more options of school lunch. All right, and then speaking of that, I have a proposal. I believe that we should do a new event for Halloween with the same motive as Cookies Your Conversation, but this time it'll be directly hosted by the student representatives. It'll mostly be about trick-or-treating, but this time it'll be talk-or-treat. It relates to trick-or-treating, except the trick is talking. It starts out with students asking us a question, and they spin a wheel. It has 2 options, talk or treat. If you spin the wheel and you land on treat, then you get a piece of candy. But if it lands on talk, then a student will have to get a piece of note paper from a bowl of a lot of notes in it. These questions can include basically anything that we received from Cookies Your Conversation, like what the students can state their opinions on or go more into depth on every situation, or just questions that will benefit the board in general. I'd be more than happy to lead that event, but I just wanted to let the board know just in case we wanted to make it a reality. Again, I thank the entire board for their help with Cookies Your Conversation. I really thought it was a really helpful event to get more student voice, and I hope that we can continue to have more events just like this one. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Ken, do you mind if we
No,
take
go
a
ahead.
minute to kind of
Go ahead.
dissect Cookies
Yes.
and Conversation? I thought that it went really well. I think if you and Jaden did something as student rep at the school, like the more the better, I think. So the question that I asked to students when they would come to me was, is there one person at this school that if you needed help, you feel like you could go to and they would help you? Like, do you have one trusted adult at this school? It started out with students saying yes. So then I would dig a little deeper, like, are you involved in a club? Does that adult happen to be a coach, a leadership teacher, an advisory teacher? And they were answering yes, it's either my band director or a coach. something like that. As the day went on, the answers started to turn like, yeah, there's trusted people. You can either go to a counselor or a teacher. I said, no, I'm not looking for like the right answer. I'm looking for the truth. Who is that person for you? You don't have to tell me their name, but is that person a counselor or is that person a teacher? And they said, oh, yeah, no, I don't have anybody. And it kind of started like a down, I don't want to say downward spiral, but it felt disheartening to hear more and more students say, no, I don't have anyone here that I trust that's an adult. So I think it was really good that we went to do that, because it opened my eyes as to what you and Jaden have been talking about the mental health struggles at the high school, and just the importance of, like, if you don't have one adult that you can go to at your school where you see an adult every hour your entire day, and you see leadership and you see administrators and counselors. Most of them didn't even know who their counselor was. So that really hurt my heart for them, that they don't have someone at the school. And it also spoke to me on how important it is for students to either be involved or to try to connect with their advisory teacher, because the students that I found that the students that weren't involved in something extracurricular, and it didn't have to be sports or band, but it was, you know, any type of club or anything where they had a little extra time with an adult, then the kids that did say yes, if they didn't have that in their life, it was their advisory teacher. And for the kids that said no, they had no connection with their advisory teacher. So I don't know how to solve that problem. And I don't know if it's obviously not one that we can solve tonight, but it really opened my eyes to how many great students we have. First of all, the kids were so great. I loved all of them. They were so polite and so nice and so kind. But the little titch of vulnerability when they would say, like, no, I don't have anyone that I trust here. Great kids. I want to do better for them. And I don't know how we do that. I don't know what the right answer is, but I was sad at how many kids said they didn't have an adult that they trusted.
First, I want to address what Sebastian said about talk and treat, talk or treat. I think that would be a really good idea if we already have like a bowl with some pre-populated questions, because a lot of the students, yes, we were asking them questions, but when we wanted them to ask us questions, they would ask us school-related questions that we couldn't really answer.
Mm-hmm.
The student reps probably can, but Lindsay and I were like, wait, what's Hall Pass? You know, or like, what's this? I think that'd be a really good idea for us to have some pre-populated questions that either we ask them or they ask us. But I like that idea. As for me, I kind of was just talking to the students just in general, just different questions. But I was trying to get them to ask me a question. I wanted to see what kind of questions they would ask me. And there was one kid who really touched me, because his question to me was, how do you develop mental toughness? And so when he asked me that question, I was taken back a little bit, and I was like, first of all, there must be a reason, you know, behind him asking me that question. And second of all, I was just very impressed with his maturity to ask that question and feel comfortable to ask it. And so, you know, I just gave him lots of encouragement and lots of advice, and just, you know, how I would, what I would consider mental toughness. And then he and his friends just started telling me about how social media can be a huge, you know, it could impact, right? It could impact the youth in our communities, and how TikTok, they've seen on TikTok where it talks about how men or boys should not speak about their emotions because it makes them look less tough, right? And so I just started talking to them about, no, I don't agree with that. I really believe that, you know, everybody has the right, and everybody should be speaking about their emotions, and they should be letting it out, not holding it in. And that just because you speak about your emotions, it doesn't make you less of a man or less of a boy, right? So I then went into, okay, so is there anybody here that you would, here at the school that you feel like you can speak to and everything? And every single one of that friend group said no to me. So that was disheartening for me. And some of them were freshmen too, and some of the freshmen just told me that, school has been in session not that long, so I understand if they haven't met with a counselor yet, but none of them don't even know who their counselor is or where they should go to be able to get help. And so for me, that, I talked to Director Prowse afterwards, and I was just trying to say, that's a lot of kids to go through the counseling office, and I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how they can get to every single student body at the high school, but it almost felt like it's a need, because there was a lot of kids that I spoke to that I felt probably need help, but they don't ask for help. And how do you identify those kids that do, but they just don't speak up? So, but overall, I really think that the site visit was really great. I had a really great time. I was very impressed with how many kids came to speak to us. It was actually a little bit overwhelming for some time, but it was a really good turnout. And I had the school lunch, and I loved it. So I don't know.
Great. Pete, do you have?
Yeah, I just add it looks like I wrote down 5 comments if I can still read them. First one is around Smart Pass. So just for the board's background and understanding, there's a safety component to that, so we know where students are in case of an emergency. But there's also a classroom culture and school culture about kids being in class. And they just started it. They're just trying it out. They're collecting some data. They're going to get feedback like Sebastian shared, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But the initial reports from the admin and from the security staff are that it's been effective in monitoring how frequently kids are out of the classroom. That's really part of what's driving it. So, but we'll continue to take that feedback and process that. Director Camp shared with me an idea last week around peer supports, and so when Sebastian brought that up, there's some information that I'm sharing with the administrators at Othello High School about specific training for students to help deal with some of these issues that kids have, and maybe they're more comfortable talking with a peer. And so she shared an interesting idea with me just last week. School lunches we're going to hear a little bit about here in a bit, so I'm not going to touch that one, but I know kids like to come up and talk about lunch, so we'll share some of the thinking around that. Back to the band just for a moment, and this idea, and I think part of my job as board secretary is for us to remember some of the investments we've made. So a few years back, the board made a significant investment in instruments for every elementary school so that every student could be exposed to that experience and decide by middle school whether or not they were going to be in band. We have set aside $75,000, I think, for band uniforms. That's already been allocated. I think the person who's designing and making those uniforms was on site recently or going to be on site shortly to get the measurements and do all that. So we'll have a new look. So I think that's something maybe isn't shared with the kids that I can take a moment to do that and share that with them. But the last one is probably the most important one, which is about sort of the disheartening experience, I think is the word that each of you used about how kids might feel, and the power in telling those stories and how it makes people think about the work. So I want to share one on the other side of it, just from this weekend. We had a student who shared anonymously that another student was in crisis on Saturday. The messages come to the central office in an anonymous way, and we can interact with the people who send messages. So we get a handful every year. And it was about the mental health of another student. They were concerned for them. Immediately call the counselors at the school where the student was attending. They may or may not know them. What was really cool in this instance is the student's person was their teacher last year. And so there are lots. So the answer is we have some people out there in our schools, they're the person for 40 or 50 kids. Right. And we have some that are not. It's a matter of having enough people interested and engaged in what we need to provide for every student. So some are obviously falling through the cracks. Some are not doing, but I also want to make sure that people understand we have some people working so hard that have a number of kids that they are supporting and helping. And so there's that other side for it. And so some of the other, I think, specific ways, especially at the secondary level, to address that is through advisory and being connected to that. And then also making sure that our teachers aren't so exhausted from all that we're asking them to do. That imagine when you get home and your kids need something from you. You're their person, and you've been working all day, and you're like, hey, not right now. That's just human nature. And so I know our teachers are feeling that too. But thank you for that feedback. The cookies and combos thing, I think this time around and the way that you shared that data is really helpful. And your idea, Sebastian, about generating more student voice, it's exactly what I think the board needs to hear and exactly what we need to hear at the school district so that you can challenge our ideas and we can challenge yours and we get the best outcomes for students. So thank you for letting me comment on some of that, Ken.
Okay. And with that, I just kind of wanted to get the board's feeling on, normally we have board member discussion first and we have student representative. What if we switch those? That way the board could address maybe some issues that the students have
I would love that.
afterwards. Okay?
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens for the agendas rolling forward, Ken.
Okay?
And I was wondering, so is there some kind of data or anything to see the sixth graders that get a 6 to 8 week band experience, if any of those are going on? Because from when I talked to some of the younger sixth graders, it was so short of a time that they didn't have an opportunity to know if they like band or not.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't know how we make it better. You know, as a
Yeah.
child, we did 5th grade band and then 6th grade band before you
Yeah,
went to
Yeah, and
Farley.
I remember as a building principal and as a elementary teacher that what drove our schedules was band.
Yeah.
And some of the constraints that it made on teaching and learning because it was so tied to band. So it's a little bit of give and
Yeah,
take. I mean,
yeah.
I think you saw at Wahidas last week and you're going to hear today how detailed and specific they are about their daily schedule and what that means for kids.
Yes.
And certainly finding the balance so the kid gets a well-rounded experience, we're trying that. I believe the band numbers have been consistent, something I can check on for the board, but at least from the looks of what I'm at games and from the parades, that we're getting about the same turnout, so it's not any less based on that exposure and
Okay.
experience.
And I know, I mean, they were pretty excited bringing home a big old instrument that they could barely get a little squeak out of. But it was a short period that you can't really get into because you haven't learned notes in that short of time with every instrument. So I do know that, but, okay, good. I mean, I would like to make sure that we follow up so the band thinks that we haven't let them aside either from the high school.
Yeah, my sixth grader brought home a trombone, so I'm good with the 6 weeks. Just to be clear, or the 8 weeks or whatever.
Okay. With that, we will go on to required approvals. Do we have a motion for required approvals?
I motion to approve the required approvals.
I second.
Okay, everybody in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carries. Superintendent informational items.
Yes, we're going to have a food service report by Mandy McDonald, and so I'll invite her up to prepare for that. And as part of the introduction for this activity, most folks who give feedback to the school district and perhaps give feedback to you as board members went to school in America at some point, right? So they have some expertise in what the student experience should feel like. And they also have strong opinions about dining services. So I was thinking back to when I was a student in high school, and they served lunch, and then there was a bit of transition and cleanup, and then right after lunch service, you could get in line and buy cookies, and they were a dime. And at our lunch table, this kid sat with us, and every day he would buy 10 cookies. He had $1 a day, and he would eat 10 cookies. I can't imagine that being allowed now, or that happening, right? But it's my memory or my thought about school lunches and how they work. And so there are so many people out there in the last 30 years, 40 years since I've been out of high school that have had experiences in dining services. Things have changed in that time. And so I think it's important that we share with you what some of the constraints are and some of the requirements and ways that we've improved it. I think it's also really timely for the board at the start of the school year here. We're really post-pandemic in schools, and we're almost post-pandemic in things like food service because of supply chain issues. But we're getting really close. And I know that some of you have brought questions to me that you've received from the community. So I know Mandy's prepared for some questions this afternoon or this evening. And so whatever you throw her way, I'm sure she'll be able to handle. So I want to turn it over to her.
Thank you. And thank you for having me this evening. I'm just going to give you guys an overview of the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program, or we commonly refer to it as NSLP and SBP, or just very short as NSLBP. So we'll start out with the nutritional standards. The meal pattern is set by the USDA and monitored by OSPI. And the standards are set by grade level, so they are grouped K5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. There are daily and weekly minimums and maximums for each component, and the components are meats, grains, fruits, vegetables, and milk. And then even those components are broken down, so like vegetables, we would have minimums and maximums for dark greens, red oranges, legumes, starchy. I mean, it gets very specific on our regulations. Grains have to be 80% whole grain rich. So we can't serve like a hamburger on a white bun. It has to be whole grain rich. So we're very restricted on what we can and cannot serve. There are minimums and maximums for calories, maximums for saturated fats, sodium, and this year adding added sugars to that. As a district, we choose to participate in offer versus serve only. That means that we have student voice in what they get to choose to eat for the day and what they choose not to eat. And that helps with cost and waste. It reduces waste because then we don't have students required to take everything that we serve or that we offer, and so then they're not just taking the green beans and throwing them right in the garbage, so we're not preparing as many if we know. We can monitor that. But that does mean that at breakfast, we have to offer 4 items, and a student must select 3 of the 4 items in order to have a reimbursable meal, and one of those 3 items has to be a fruit or a vegetable. And at lunch, we offer 5 components, and the student has to take 3 of the 5 components in order to have what's classified as a reimbursable meal. Again, having to take a fruit or a vegetable. So next we have procurement standards.
Let's
Yeah, pause.
so that's a lot, and that's just on nutritional standards and design of a monthly menu. Are there any questions from the board around those components?
So the minimum and maximum that you're able to purchase that you were talking about, is that per meal or per day for the kid? Is it broken down like?
Yeah, it's per meal, per day, per week. So there are some regulations. I don't know if I can click that link specifically. There's a link there where it's underlined as meal pattern. You can see that specifically. Those are the requirements
Okay.
for each of the grade levels and each of the component areas, and that's for lunch. And then scroll down and you can see breakfast. So if I'm sure they'll share this presentation with you if you'd like to see it. You can peruse that at your leisure. But yeah, they're very specific about what we can offer during the week and
Okay.
must offer.
And then when you say that you ask the students like what they want, does that mean that you're asking students or using previous data to see what they eat the most of, and then you do that, or you're asking them, or you decide what you're feeding them, and then you just ask the child, like, do you want chicken nuggets?
Yeah,
Do you want grapes?
Yeah, I can give you specifics. So
Okay.
let's say at the elementary schools when we're serving breakfast. So let's say on the menu this morning it's, let's say breakfast pizza, apple slices, orange juice, and milk. When they come through the line, they don't have to take one of everything. They can take one of everything, but they're not required to. They only have to take 3 out of the 4 items. But one of those items has to be one of the fruits. So they have to take either the apples or the orange juice, and then they can take the main item and the milk, or any combination that adds up to the 3. And then as far as options at lunch, we only serve one option at elementary school level, but at middle school and high school, so middle school has, I think, 5 options a day that they get to choose from, and high school has 6 as for their main item, as their main entree. Then, of course, they have salad bar to go along with that, but their main entree is 6 different items a day at the high school and 5 at the middle school. So that's a lot. So you could potentially have a different item for lunch every single day
Yeah.
for a month at the high school or middle school, well, and elementary.
So Mandy, are they, oh, sorry.
Go
The
ahead.
elementaries, they get one,
So they have one,
so they have to take the one.
so they take the one, yeah,
And no
yes.
choice.
No. It's,
Why is that?
well, the restrictions are different, so they have a much smaller portion because the calories are lower, so it just becomes harder to offer that many options. So like at the high school, on any given day, we would have a rotating main entree, and then we would have like a chicken burger, hamburger, pizza, deli sandwich, and a tuna sandwich. So all of those things, those are all the main items that they get to choose from, and then we have the one main entree that changes every single day. So it might be, anything like Chinese or whatever that you want to have, like just depends on our rotating menu and seasonally.
So the foods they're not cooked like the olden days. I mean, I know they don't have mashed potatoes and gravy. They have
Sometimes we do.
pre-packed. Oh, they do have that still.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think there was, thinking back, we would have mashed potatoes and gravy and a roll. Yes, you're right.
Yep.
There was a lot more starch.
Those rolls were amazing.
They really were.
So were the cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
But like 20 years ago in the elementaries, I'd say maybe even 25 years ago, the kids loved ranch dressing and croutons.
We
They
still
would-
serve ranch dressing and
And
croutons.
croutons?
It's just the
Oh.
croutons are whole grain.
I mean, that's what they
They're
They
whole
were
grain
fine.
rich.
They were fine.
Oh, they-
I was like, I had them. They were fine.
Yep.
But, okay, so that's, yeah, I think what most of the people are wanting to know is if they had more specific items that were like cooked up like the old ways, but
We
a
are.
lot of that is regulated, I know, by the USDA.
It is, but I do have, I was going to talk about it later, but I can talk about it now.
Okay.
We are seeing our lunch numbers going up at the high school
Okay.
especially and middle school. And we do believe that is because we are incorporating more school scratch back into our
Okay.
menu, and we're able to do that because we're post-pandemic.
Okay.
When we were during the pandemic,
Yes.
manufacturers were producing a lot of individually wrapped items so that we could send them home
Yes.
and they could consume them there. But now they're doing a lot more bulk, so we're able to make things like lime cilantro tacos, and we can make things out of the bulk items, and chicken Alfredo penne pasta, and
Okay.
school scratch pizza. So we can actually make things out of the bulk items that we're able to order now, that we weren't even able to order because they weren't manufacturing it, because it wasn't able, we weren't able to use it. How do you make mashed potatoes and send them home
Yeah.
Yeah.
in a bag
Well,
to
that's
go,
true. That's
during
true.
the pandemic? So we got away from that. We're going back to that.
Good,
So
good.
Yeah.
And I think that's all the people really want to know.
yep,
Yeah.
we definitely are
Adults,
doing
yeah,
that.
parents.
So just to be totally transparent, the complaints that we get when we go to site visits is mostly around food.
Yep.
But it's not 7 through 12 because they have multiple options.
Yep.
And it's not just kids. It's adults telling us the kids are throwing their lunch away in the K-6 schools. They're throwing their lunch away. Most of us have kids or grandkids that go to these elementary schools that also come home and say, like, I don't eat my lunch, I threw it away. And then when the adults at the school say, like, I used to eat school lunch when it was like turkey gravy and mashed potatoes, or when there was stuff that like was made, but it seems like, and I know the pandemic, it messed everything up, right?
Yep.
But
I can also tell you that everything is based on nutrition, not necessarily taste.
yeah,
Because, I mean, how many of you don't use salt at your table?
I don't.
I do.
I do too. And we are very restricted on sodium levels. And even now that they just passed another regulation where there's a limit on added sugars. So it has to be all just natural sugar that's in there. So, I mean, if you look at anything in a regular grocery store, there is added sugar, there is sodium, like it's all there. Our freshly baked, rolls and those 10-cent cookies, we had 50-cent cinnamon rolls too every morning.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was, I don't know how I ate them every day and looked like I did, but they were amazing. But we can't do that now. Like there's no way we could fit that into this nutrition
Mhm.
restriction. So, I mean, we do the best to flavor up stuff as best we can, but every single piece is monitored, like down to putting butter on corn. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
can't just steam up corn and expect you to eat it. You want salt and butter on it. So, we're having to work around, and we're doing that, but there's limits.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
questions that I get have almost more to do with breakfast than I do for the lunch.
Mhm.
Because the breakfast is kind of presented as not optional. And my kids, neither one, they all just want to take their own hot lunch from home, and they have done that for years. And
Yeah.
so they pack their lunch in the morning and they take it. But they get there and the breakfast is mandatory.
No.
And that's their perception or whatever is being encouraged from their teachers. And so it's like, well, they tell us we need to go get breakfast, and we go get breakfast, and then I don't eat it, so it just goes in the trash. So is there something maybe that can be done differently to make sure that kids that, I mean, I know there's a lot of kids that don't have breakfast at home, and we need to have breakfast in school, no doubt. But for kids that are eating at home and aren't going to eat it anyway, like, that totally breaks my heart to have it just go straight in the trash. I'm like, just don't take breakfast. And they're like, no, Mom, they tell us we have to take breakfast.
No one is required to take any
So-
meal. And students also have the option to bring breakfast from home just the same way they bring lunch from home. So they can eat it, their breakfast from home in the classroom just as they do lunch. But no one is required to eat any meal. So especially at the elementary where we go around class to class, and the kids come out who want to eat, get in line, get their meal, and go back into class. So it's not even like everyone comes out to get it. It's only those students who want it. So no one is required to. So if we need to, I mean, everyone is encouraged to, because that's another thing that people want to shy away from, is a stigma of, going out to get a
Right.
breakfast if you need it.
Mhm.
So everyone is encouraged to get it, but no one is required to. Ever.
So I think when you're 7, there's a really fine line between
Yep.
encouraging and,
Mhm.
oh, now I have to. And
Yeah.
I think that's probably where the disconnect is,
Yeah.
because it's my son more than my daughter, and he's 7. He's in
Yeah.
grade 2, and he's like, I won't eat it, Mom, but
So hopefully parents are watching this and can talk to their kids and just like give them that explanation that they don't have to. There's a choice. If they're not hungry, they don't have to take it. And even when they do take the meal, they're not required to eat what they've taken. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna say you need to finish your apples.
But they don't have to bring something from home
Nope,
if they're not
They can choose not to
taking
do
that.
anything. They can
Okay.
eat breakfast at home and not eat at all during that time. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? No? Okay, I'll keep going. So, procurement standards. So that was just nutritional. Procurement standards outline who and how much we can purchase from. So, all entities that use federal funds must follow procurement guidelines, and this includes informal and formal bid processes, conforming to purchasing thresholds, and complying with the Buy American provision. We currently receive food from USDA Commodities and our contracted vendors, who are US Foods, Springbrook Farms, and Spokane Produce. If we order something from US Foods, let's say, and it doesn't arrive, we can't just pop over to Walmart or Leprechaun and get a substitution, because we don't have, they're not our vendor contract, and so we would quickly reach our spending thresholds with them, and they won't necessarily have the quantity of the servings that we need, and they very likely won't have a child nutrition label on those items, which moves us right into child nutrition labels. They're required for all of the menu items that we serve. So manufacturers include a standardized crediting statement on their product label, and those labels are authorized for use by USDA before they sell the item. And so, for instance, let's say pizza. They'll have that standardized crediting statement on there that says that this serving of pizza counts for 2 ounces of grain and 2 ounces of meat, which we know then meets our meal pattern for the grades 9 through 12. And we can serve that. And that's just one item on one day. So all the things that we have, that we serve, need to have a child nutrition label so that we can clearly assign what category they go to. The health department, they come around twice a year and do food safety inspections on all of the sites that we prepare food at. And those food safety inspections are publicly displayed. So if you were to walk into any one of our cafeterias, you could go in there and you could find our food safety inspection pretty easily, and you could see how well we did. Special dietary needs. Reasonable meal accommodations are made for students with documented allergies. There's paperwork that needs to be filled out for this to happen, and you can find that on our website, or you can go into any one of our schools and ask the school nurse for the documentation, and you just take it into your doctor, and they fill out letting us know what their allergy is, what their reaction to that food is, if it's life-threatening, and what they prescribe for us to serve instead of whatever it is that they're allergic to. But even then, there's OSPI requirements about what we can serve. So let's say that it's milk, that's the allergy, and the doctor just puts on there, go ahead and serve juice. Well, that's not an acceptable substitute for OSPI. You need to do like a non-dairy milk to go in there, like a soy milk or some other type of milk. They have a specific list of things that you can choose from. We can't just say, yep, here's the juice. It doesn't qualify to meet one of the 5 components for a reimbursable meal. And then production records. This is where all of the information is recorded to prove that we've complied with all of the above regulations. Some of the things that you'll find documented in our production records are our prepared and served numbers, leftovers and waste, nutrition information, food temperatures, allergens, manufacturers, recipes, prep and serve instructions, child nutrition labels, labor hours, meal substitutions. We have a very comprehensive program called Healthy Pro that we use to document all this information. And our production records are reviewed by OSPI at least every 3 years as part of our audit review. They are extremely important, and we take them very seriously.
So Mandy, can they not, someone that doesn't have food at home, come in the kitchen and get any of the leftovers? I know that's a fine line, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We can't do that.
I didn't think so.
Health department will not allow us to do that. We have looked into that. We did a very extensive study about that last year to see what we could do about like even donating to food banks and stuff like that. And there's so many restrictions, and just comes down to our health department won't allow us to do that, and won't allow whoever was going to take it to receive it. Because there's just a lot of safety issues with that.
One quick question about the food allergies on any given year.
Uh-huh.
Like, about how many kids within the district do you have that you are trying to do special things for, and how much does that increase your man hours and
That's a good question.
whatnot?
I would say we have an average of 3 to 5 per building. So it's not, it is man hours. We have to order separate stuff. We have to make sure we have enough of that on hand, and it's really hard to make a menu that has variety for kids who have severe allergies. So that is one challenge, especially when we get supply chain issues. But we're doing it. But it's 3 to 5 per building on average.
I'm curious, Mandy, do different campuses give you guys feedback on like this meal works? Let's do this, and this meal doesn't. Like, we need to cut this from our menu, or
Absolutely.
that kind of feedback.
Yep. We
Okay.
monitor all of that, and our production records show what our popular items are and what isn't. And even then, even if like kids do take it but don't eat it, our cooks are seeing that. It's pretty discouraging to do all the work to prepare a meal and see
Yeah.
it go in the garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about how you feel when you make dinner at home and nobody eats it. You're like, that's the last time I'm eating it.
Yep.
You're on your own. Eat cereal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's how I am anyway.
Is that you've been to my house?
Yeah. Okay, breakfast after the bell. Breakfast must be offered to students after the start of the school day and before 10 a.m. So the breakfast after the bell bill was passed because many students who qualified for free or reduced meals were not getting access to breakfast. And as a district, meeting the 70% free and reduced rate for students, that minimum, we were required to start a breakfast after the bell program in the 2019-2020 school year. And immediately our breakfast served numbers doubled when we started our breakfast after the bell program. At this point in time, we're almost tripled our numbers that what we're serving from before we started our breakfast after the bell program. Our breakfast after the bell model is so successful that we're actually regularly serving more students breakfast than lunch, especially at OHS and DOHS where we have an open campus policy. But we even are seeing it some days in the elementary level. We've had 2 school districts come to visit, observe, and learn about our service model, and it was presented statewide during an OSPI webinar in April and at the Washington School Nutrition Association annual conference in July. So this is the number of meals we've served to date. Actually, that doesn't include today. These were from Friday when I made this slide. So we've served over 40,000 breakfasts, over 43,000 lunches, for an average district-wide, which would include ECAP preschool, K through 12, and Skills Horse, an average of 5,247 meals a day, which is no small feat.
No.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about the school scratch here, but we already covered that, so that's good. We do continue to battle supply chain issues weekly. In fact, today we had a truck that was supposed to show up and just never did. We were expecting over $20,000 worth of product on that truck, and it just didn't come. So if there's a day that you see something menued and that's not what we're actually serving the day, it's probably because we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And we had to switch today's menu to what we actually had planned for Friday because what was supposed to be served today didn't come. So we're hoping that that gets better, but at this point in time, we don't really see an end to it. We're just trying to stay hopeful.
I know years ago there used to, like pre-pandemic, you used to be able to see the menu like through Skyward. Is that still
Yeah, you don't go through
there?
Skyward. You can go right to our website and you can
I'm
see
on
it for any school and any
Is
day.
it there?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that kept up to date? Like if you guys have some sort of a daily issue?
No,
That the
it would
next
depend.
day would
So
have
if it's like a today thing, no. If it's like for next week and we know that it's not coming in, and then we'll switch it on there so that it's as up to date as it can be. We try to keep it as up to date, but if there's something that we just can't, if it's a today thing or a tomorrow thing, no, it won't get updated. Especially because of the production records. The way that it works, we have to just notate it on there instead of switching it around because it really fouls up all the
Sure.
numbers.
This might be more of an Ed Peterson question than you, but is there a way to build that into Parent Square so that parents could see everything in one platform?
That is an Ed question.
We can post menus weekly, or monthly even, but as far as having a menu link in there, I don't know if it has that kind of functionality, but we can.
You have any other questions for me?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You mentioned your supply. You're limited to who you could buy your supplies from.
Yep.
I know in some other states, and I don't know if Washington has approached this yet, on purchasing from local producers. So you have more fresher products and stuff like that. You don't know of anything
Yeah,
like that? Or
we can, but we still have to go through the bid process, and they still have to be a vendor that. There's a whole list of things that a vendor has to do to be eligible for us to purchase from them. They have to be checked. What? Yes, thank you. They have to be checked for suspension and debarment. We have to make sure that the competitive bid process is complete. So we have to give everybody the option to, let's
Have a
say it's
chance to
cucumbers that we would like to get. We have to put that bid out. We have to put that item out to bid, and then whoever wins that bid. So it's not necessarily that we would get that one. Like Spokane Produce may win the bid, so we have to still follow all the procurement. But yeah, that's definitely an option.
Mhm.
It's also, I don't want to be disparaging to local or anything, but it's harder. I mean, when we're serving 5,200 and whatever meals a day, that's a big demand for a local farmer to supply us
Accommodate
with.
it. Mhm.
Totally.
certain things.
Any other questions?
I don't know if there's other questions, but I would just like to say that this is a ton of amazing minutia that you guys are going through every single day to make sure that we are meeting standards, and you're obviously excelling within the state, being able to give presentations and stuff. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
really, really
I
good
have
job.
really thoroughly enjoyed this presentation.
Yeah.
As far as I could go back, as long as I've been on the board, I think this is the first time that food service has really brought this kind of information to us, and it was really nice to hear all the
Thank you.
numbers.
Agreed.
This
Yeah,
just scratches the surface. I could really dive
Yeah.
deep if we had a lot more time.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank Mandy as well. She skipped over it pretty quickly, but her presentation at the state level was really well regarded. People are looking to the work that's happening here around serving meals to kids and recognizing it. A couple other pieces, since Thalia encouraged all of us to share our emotions, I'll go from a bit of levity to something a little more serious. Some folks in the room are aware that I'm a super taster. And so hearing Mandy talk about food really touches my heart, and I know it's important for people who aren't super tasters to have good food in front of them. The second piece is that you sort of blending this idea about belonging and who can make a kid feel connected. About 15 years ago, I was with two students, high school students, and they were with me doing a service project because they weren't doing good things at school. It was, a commitment that they had to make to restore themselves with the school community. And one of the students in particular, he was odd. He was a different duck. And we ran into a school district employee who had worked at the middle school in food service, who was also a different duck that most people would say, man, that's a hard person to connect with. When they saw each other, they embraced and hugged one another. And it was the weirdest, I never forgot it. And so this employee left and I said, what was that about? And he said that he had a really difficult time in middle school, but every day they served breakfast pizza. And every day this employee would save the burned piece and put it aside because she knew that's what he liked. The only person he was connected to at that school was that individual. And 6 years later in high school when he's still struggling, it meant that much to him. Like, I don't think there were a lot of hugs in that young man's life, but from that person and what she provided for him by that small act in the breakfast line made a big difference to him. And so this work that they do, our bus drivers bringing kids to school, people making sure our campus is safe and clean, sometimes that stuff goes unnoticed, but we'll do better this year in bringing operational folks in so that you can hear their stories and we can tell the community the good work they're doing. So thank you, Mandy, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy.
I feel like we saw that at Desert Oasis last spring as well, with the kids interacting, and her name totally escapes me right now, but that was doing doing the food up there, where there was an extra connection piece with her knowing everybody.
Sebastian.
Also, I wanted to compliment the school lunch menu, the website that you guys use to check like what's served every day of the week. I use that every day just to check what we have for lunch, and I'm actually impressed on how well organized that is. I click one food item, and it tells me the nutrition facts, everything. Any possible like egg allergies, milk allergies, everything, how much protein. I'm surprised the chicken sandwich has 32 grams of protein in it. That's crazy.
I did want to add that. Thank you for bringing that up. If you do have allergens or just preferences, you can click on our website, on the menu on our website, and click the things you don't want to eat, and it will cross out the menu items that have those in there, so you know what you can and can't eat or don't want to eat.
One more thing. Thank you for adding tahini to the school menu. I love eating that with cucumbers so much. It's amazing.
Okay.
All right. Well, this next chunk of time, so moving away from operations and food service, kind of our core business, right? Teaching and learning. So we're excited to have the folks from Wajitas Elementary here today to give us their annual report after our site visit at Wajitas last week. So invite them forward.
All right. I don't know how we're going to follow that. That was a lot more exciting than what we're probably going to bring to you guys. But thank you for having us tonight. I'm here with Seamus McPartland, our assistant principal, and Amy Palmore, our dean of students. So we have some information to share with you, and then hopefully you have some questions for us. So last year at about this time, it's almost to the day exactly, we sat in front of you and talked about some things happening at Wajitas. And one of the things we brought up was on the left there you see what we called the Hawk Handbook. And it was in an effort to really bring clarity to what we do every day at our school and make sure that everybody's on the same page. This year we took it kind of to the next level and started a website with all of that information that's so much easier to use than the Hawk Handbook itself, because you don't have to carry a book around with you. We all have access to the internet at our fingertips, and so everything is there for our teachers. And that saying there, clarity breeds success, is something that we really believe, that the more clear we can be and the more straight to the point and not have to worry about what is that actually what it means, or where do I find this, and things like that, the better off we're going to be. And so that is a live website that is out there and has been shared with other school districts as well, and people do look at it. and we definitely use it every single day. The big thing with us too is the idea of being sustainable, because the system is bigger than one or two people or a group. We want to make sure that no matter what happens, what we're doing is going to be sustained and is going to keep going. And without having things clearly written down and outlined, it's really hard to do that. And so this is our attempt at that, and we'll continue to refine it as we go, but everything is there for us. This next image here is, a lot of times you hear the word system. This is our system, and it's almost become like a buzzword in education now, but I like to think that we don't just use that word, but we really live it. We really live our system every day, and it's clearly defined. And so this is just a really high view of the system itself, how we operate and how we interact with each other. Each of these pieces can be even more in-depth defined and gone into, but we spent a whole week before school started in August having trainings on each of these pieces, really in-depth, the lesson structure around math and ELA, going back to the basics. Do we all understand what good ELA instruction is? Do we all understand when we are teaching fact fluency in math, how do we expect that to happen? What does that really look like? So again, that clarity piece, going back to making sure we're all on the same page. Some of our teachers have taught there since day one, when we opened our doors in 2012. And it's easy to forget things if you don't go back to them. And so that was our push this summer. Also, you'll notice there's a gray circle around or behind the left side there, the feedback and coaching. One of the district priorities for the last couple of years has been feedback, and it's something we take very, very seriously at WHEDIS. Teachers get feedback pretty regularly from us, and it happens on the left side there. Anything on that side, the teachers will be getting feedback about, and making sure that we're collaborating together to make ourselves better, and talking and doing those things so that we're not becoming stagnant. We're not just saying this is how we did it, we're just going to do it again and again and so forth. We're making sure that we're doing the best we possibly can, and that feedback and coaching piece plays a big role in that. This might sound familiar as well from last year when we sat here, but our focus hasn't really changed over the last couple years. The big things are what we teach, being incredibly clear about the things that are going to go in front of our kids every day, and also making sure that what's happening in one fourth grade classroom is also happening in the other, and the other, and the other. So no matter what teacher you have, it's the same. Making sure that it's a quality and curriculum being placed in front of every single student, and that we're going to be able to get through all the information by the end of the year. The last thing you want to do is get to May and realize we haven't taught 4 or 5 major standards. Like, you can't do that. And so making sure that we're very clear about what we teach and we stick to that. Also, the next thing is how we teach it. So you could have the best material in the world, you could have the best curriculum, all of that, but if it's not being taught at a really high quality level, you're really missing the mark. And so the next focus for us is how we teach it, and with that, making sure that we're all teaching in the same way. And I think you guys got to see that when we were in the classrooms last Monday. Our teachers teach in a similar way, but they each have a very different spin they put on the lessons, and their personalities come out in each of those classrooms, but it's the same content. It's the same strategies being used. Purposeful reading, writing, and discussion, that literacy piece is becoming a big focus for us, making sure that our kids are doing enough reading, writing, speaking, and listening every single day. We'll go into that a little bit further. And then also making sure that how we interact is is focused on, sorry, I realized I'm stepping on Seamus's feet here. I just realized, I was like, wait, this is Seamus's slide, but I'm just going to keep right on going. How we interact is really, really important, and especially coming back from COVID, that piece is, we have to focus on that, because if we don't focus on it, it can be forgotten. We're willing to take things off teachers' plates if it's outside of this realm. But if it is within this realm, doing whatever we possibly can to support them and figure out how to make that sustainable. So that's kind of our filter when teachers come to us, is if it's one of these things, we got to figure it out. If it's not one of these things and it's taking our time and causing a lot of anxiety, we'll figure out how to take that off the plate. So I'm just going to keep going with my next slide too. Okay, I'm just on a roll here. All right. So one of the big lifts this year for us has been the looping piece. Again, we talked about this last Monday when you were in our building, but a few things to really highlight about this. One of the things you'll hear our teachers say a lot in our building is, today we'll do it and tomorrow we'll do it better. That idea that you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And so one of the ways we're trying to do better this year is the idea of looping. And so what that means for us is we've committed to trying it for 1 year. It's been a big undertaking, but our teachers are going into it knowing that we're committing to it for 1 year, and then we're going to revisit in the spring. Is it something we want to continue? Do we want to tweak it again? Do we want to continue with exactly how we did it? We'll decide that later. But as of right now, we have, you can see there, 1 second grade teacher from last year looped up to 3rd grade. 3 of our 5th grade teachers looped, so they didn't technically looped, but they went down to 3rd grade. 3 3rd grade teachers looped up to 4th. And we also had 1 new staff member join that team. 3 4th grade teachers looped up to 5th with 1 staff member joining, and then 1 5th grade teacher looped up to 6th. So it's about 60% of our classroom teachers are in a new assignment this year, which is a big, big lift for a school. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate and I really respect our teachers for being willing to say, well, let's give it a shot. Let's see what we can do with it. And that takes a lot. There's been a couple principals that I've shared that with, that we got that many teachers to try something new, and it's almost like disbelief that how would so many staff members agree to do something like that in such a short amount of time. And so to say it lightly, I mean, it doesn't really convey how big of a thing that really is for our school. The intended outcomes for students are stronger relationships, improved attendance, fewer discipline issues, increased instructional time. And one of the cool things is we just recently, actually this morning, took a SEL survey trying to get some information from our kids, and I quick looked through it. We asked them an open-ended question at the end, and I said, only if you're in 4th or 5th grade answer this question, but how have you felt with looping this year, having the same teacher? And so it was open-ended. They could answer however they wanted. I didn't give them any choices. So I read through all of them and kind of categorized them as either positive, neutral, or negative, not liking the experience so far. And 70% of the 4th and 5th graders that are looping are having a really positive experience with it. About 25% of them are neutral. They're saying, it doesn't seem like any other year, and only 5% have had a negative impact or haven't been super excited about it. So that's about 95% of the kids that are either positive, are really enjoying it, or it's another year for them, which is good information for us to have, and it'll be interesting to watch that go or keep track of that as the year goes on. The intended outcomes for staff is increased understanding of content, the vertical collaboration, and it's strengthening the system. Our teachers are really having to dive into the content itself and understand, you may have taught 3rd grade for 25 years, but now you're being pushed to teach 4th grade, and just really having to understand the content at a deeper level. Same thing even if you're a brand new teacher, maybe you've taught 4th grade for 1 year, now you're up to 5th grade. Even if we go back to teaching the same grades as we were in the past couple of years, our teachers are going to have a stronger understanding of, what are they asking the kids to do and how does that progress throughout the grade levels. Also, it ties right nicely into one of the district focuses, which is belonging. That's the goal of this, that our kids feel like they really belong and they have that sense of community even more so than before. The next piece that one of the big lifts for us this year is our Hawk Walks. Again, you heard about this last year, but the new part of the Hawk Walks is last year it was really admin heavy. We led them and we went to all the classrooms with the teachers. They went as a group, so we all would teach 4th grade. We'd all go together to see another classroom with an admin, but we'd see other grades, not our grade. The feedback we got from the teachers was that was great last year, but they would really like to see their own team or teammates teach. They spend so much time planning lessons together and talking about the lessons and rehearsing them in front of each other, but they never actually get to see their peers teach because they're teaching with kids the same times they are. So this year we upped it a little bit by saying, okay, let's try that. This year, every team, one member is out walking while the other 3 are still in teaching. So that team member that's out walking has a whole morning or afternoon to sit in their teammates' classrooms and just really dig into how's that lesson going. We said this is what's going to happen. Did that actually happen? Oh man, I see what your spin on it was. That's different than mine, but I really like what you did. Things like that. They're also meeting with us before they go out on those walks to say what feedback have Seamus and I been giving them, and they highlight that, and then they say, this is what I really want to look at today. They go into those classrooms, they see what they see, then we come out, talk about it, and they make a commitment for themselves. I'm going to really work on having quicker transitions. We make note of that, and that's what we look for the next time we're in their classrooms. The intended outcomes for these is just that peer feedback. You know, it's one thing to get feedback from Seamus or I when we're in your classroom, but it's another thing for them to sit with each other and talk about what they saw, you know, because they're the ones really living it and planning those lessons together. They can learn a lot. We have phenomenal teachers. They can learn a lot from each other. It strengthens collective efficacy, which if you know much about effect size, that's one of the highest effects is having teachers believe in the system and what they can do. And then bottom line, it's going to improve instruction. We're going to get better because we're going to learn from each other, and knowing that that's going to continue all year long. This also ties into the district priority of multilingual learners because that coherent instruction is going to benefit our multilingual learners and our low-income students dramatically. The other district priority it ties into is PLCs. It's taking that idea of PLC, the professional learning community, to the next level. Not only are we going to plan together, but then we're going to go actually watch each other. We're going to sit with each other afterwards and talk about how it went. What did I learn? What am I going to try to do? On the first couple rounds that we've had, the teachers have even basically said that a couple times they it was like a tag team. They were teaching lessons together because they were, hey, try this, and they would get up and teach it. And then the other teacher would be like, oh, that was cool. I haven't thought of it that way. And so I think as this goes on, it's going to be really interesting to find out the things we learn from it that we may not have intended to learn. And then also it'll be interesting to hear where our teachers want to go with it next. How are they going to up the ante for it next year? This time I will pass it up.
I have a quick logistical question, if I can.
Yeah.
Who is, let's say I'm a 4th grade teacher and I want to go watch my other 4th grade teachers. What happens to my class while I leave to go do that? Like, who teaches my students?
Yeah, that was something that the district office helped us out with funding, and they found time or funds for us to have subs in the classroom. So I'll have, like, let's say tomorrow morning we were going to do it. I'd have 4 subs in the building for a 2nd grade teacher, a 3rd grade teacher, a 4th grade teacher, and a 5th grade teacher. So they would be out, and a sub would be in their room while they had the morning to be in other classrooms.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
This year we're bringing back the Amazing Shake. It's a new program to me, but I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. It was put on pause before COVID. A lot of the skills that we were trying to teach weren't acceptable during COVID. So it's a competition that places an emphasis on teaching social skills, specifically manners, discipline, respect, and professional conduct. And it will lead to a culminating competition at the end of the year. Students learn the nuances of professional human interaction. They'll have to learn how to shake somebody's hand while giving eye contact, work a room, give a successful interview, and also remain composed under pressure. Another thing that it could possibly do is bring in the community when they're doing these interviews, so the community can be involved with the kids at the school. A big reason we're moving this way is colleges are moving away from application essays and they're moving toward interviews. And so we want to prepare kids not just academically but also socially to be successful in the future world for them. The intended outcomes prepare our students so that they're able to present themselves exceptionally well for any opportunity, whether it be college or an interview or whatever the case is in the future. And we believe that this will promote self-confidence in the kids.
Please reach out to us when you guys are doing that. We love to come in for that. So we all either own a business or work in a profession and as professionals in some way or another. So we could come in as not just a school board member, but as a community member in whatever capacity. But
I think
know
the
we'd
3
love
of
to
us
come.
judged
Yeah.
and listened to interviews, and it was fun.
It was great.
It was really fun, so.
I have a comment. So I remember when I was in 6th grade, when I was still a Hawk, I did this competition, but I reached top 100, but I didn't make it to the finale. So I just really want to thank you guys for hosting this event, because if it wasn't for this event, I probably wouldn't even be here. It made me realize the hard truth of the world, that meaning that I need to learn how to be more confident, get out of my comfort zone, and try new things. That's the whole reason why I'm in the school board in the first place. So really, thank you again.
Sebastian, I don't know about that. I think you do very well on your own, but we appreciate the shout out nonetheless. So, and I'm glad we have it on record that you're willing to help. So we'll definitely be hitting you up. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce some information about our student experience at Wajitas. So we're able to offer some really awesome things for our 6th graders. We call it 6th grade enrichment. So with the exception of Mondays, we're able to do a rotation. Most of it are 9-week rotations. And you can see on the screen there the kinds of things that we do offer, anything from engineering to possibly being a teacher helper, chess, sports, so on. And those are 9-week rotations. However, leadership, and I think there is one other, I just can't remember off the top of my head, that is an 18-week rotation. So leadership included, it could be band. Could be band. So they're getting that. It's a bigger taste. So if you have a trombone, I'm sorry. But who knows what you can accomplish in those 18 weeks. But anyways, one of the perks of my job is that I get to be the leadership teacher. And to break that down a little bit further, the way that we form our leadership group, our student leadership group, is through 5th grade teacher recommendations. So that's where we start. And then it's optional for the students. But one thing that they're expected to do is go through an application process. And that can be pretty extensive, and part of that process does involve an essay. So the essay is titled Why I'll Be a Good Leader and Why I Want to Be on the Leadership Team. So that's pretty powerful to go through when I'm making the decision regarding who's going to be on the team for the upcoming year. There's also staff recommendation forms. They're expected to not only have a completed form, of course, by their homeroom teacher, but at least 1 walk to read and 2 specialist teachers as well. So it's a pretty great opportunity. This is the first year. It broke my heart. I wasn't able to invite every student to be a member of that team. But there are, I want to say, 24 to 25 students. So we did divide it half a year. And we do a number of different things throughout those 18 weeks. This year we started something new where the students are making birthday cards for every student in the school. So they basically just went kind of through a list that our secretary gave me. So we highlighted all the September, one color, so on and so forth. And they've been making hundreds and hundreds of cards that they'll go hand deliver to these students. So that's been pretty exciting. They do a weekly When report, Wajitas Elementary News. So that's also very exciting for us. Another responsibility is to do the morning announcements. They do things like they create posters to boost morale and spirit to display throughout the school. And then we also work on the qualities of leaders. That could be anything from public speaking to maybe being more of a behind-the-scenes kind of person, knowing that we're all going to work together to build that leadership within our school. And then I'll move on, unless there's any questions about that segment.
Just a really quick question. Were you not able because you had too many applicants for leadership? Is that what you meant? Like too many kids applied to do it? So you had to turn...
Yeah, there was quite a number.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
It is great. So it was very difficult to not be able to accept everybody. But who knows what we'll be able to do next year to accommodate that. So moving on then is the house system. So many perks to the house system, which kind of piggybacks a bit off of the Amazing Shake, because that is all tied into the Ron Clark Academy. And there was a group of us who a few years ago went to Atlanta, Georgia, and got to see it firsthand, which was a really, really powerful experience. So I was fortunate enough to be part of that. And we brought back the things that we could basically implement within our building. I think the house system offers us many things that we can do to build that sense of belonging. But what a great factor within the house system is it does create smaller, more connected communities to create that stronger sense of belonging. So it's a built-in place where they automatically belong. So of course, the ultimate goal is that they belong within their classroom, right? That their teachers, their #1 fan kind of thing. But then they get another opportunity when we do a house day, or something we're trying this year, House Buddies. So an upper, like a 6th grade classroom, who's, let's say, the House of Isabindi, would partner up then with a kinder House of Isabindi. And so you've got Isabindians from 6th and kinder who kind of get to buddy up for various activities. So it's a pretty cool opportunity. We're looking forward to that. Our first day is next week, so we'll share more when we see how that one goes. I think it plays into a powerful and positive school climate. It's pretty competitive, but really in a safe way. It does provide a lot of opportunities for, maybe redirect, reteach that even though you're losing doesn't mean you're out of the game, or just because you're winning doesn't necessarily make you any better. So we get opportunities like that to teach school spirit and good sportsmanship. And I did mention the house buddy thing. So the one-to-one connections, those would be built in there, and then that possibility for mentoring, and then how that could follow them throughout the years. So we're strategically pairing up groups. I don't believe off the top of my head that it is 6 in kinder. I think we might be doing something more like kinder and 3rd, and then that way it seems to be a more equal balance.
So I was wondering, since they spin the wheel to
Yeah.
see what group,
What house they
are
belong
there
to.
some groups that have a lot more? Because I noticed in my
because it's random, right?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
In my grandson's room, his group he's in was like 10, and then 2 and 3 and 4. I mean, it was like, wow,
Random,
they're all in
yeah.
the same room, and they're all.
Right.
But I think it's wonderful.
Thank
I
you.
think what it really helps is a kindergartner coming in. They're not afraid. And I know the staff. Mike's wife used to be there, and she loved getting things on the day to give out to her house kitties.
Right.
It's really fun, and I think
Good.
that makes it really good for the kids too. Gives them a little more to want to be good at everything.
I think so, and it's a motivator
Yes.
too. So we'll have a house hype week that will lead into Alturismo. They're the House of the Givers, former champs, but they're also the Snakes too. So we'll have the different house hype days that will lead into that big celebration for Alturismo, and we have a big assembly, and it's really powerful because you see how these houses come together. They're divided in the gym depending on their flag, and it's crazy cool and crazy loud. But it's a really powerful experience, I think, for everybody, and we get a lot of positive feedback from the staff, and of course, mostly from the students, which is that's who we're there for. So it's pretty great.
Oh yes,
Love it.
Pretty great.
Like I had to throw that in there. I have to say Amistad is a past winner as well. We're coming back. We're going to get it again this year. All right. So I can't leave you without showing you some numbers and talking about some numbers. But I talked to you a little bit about this on Monday. Another way to look at this is looking at all the elementary schools in the state of Washington. There are 179 schools with at least 50% of their students being impacted by either poverty or ELA. So again, almost 180 schools that look similar to us. And that red arrow there, you can't see our number very well, but the red arrow there is us here at WAHEDS. And what that number represents is the average math and ELA passing percentage on the SBA. And we were at 76.9%, which puts us in the 90th percentile, or the top 2% of elementary schools in the state of Washington in this cohort. So something really, really cool to be proud of. It's not the only thing that we focus on in our building, but it's one of the outcomes because of what we focus on. And with that said, I just wanted to make sure we take a little bit of time to really recognize the hard work, the unbelievably hard work that the staff, the teachers, when I say teachers, I mean both certified and classified, and our students are putting in every single day, because that doesn't just happen by chance. That's a lot of hard work, a lot of urgency every day in the classroom, a lot of focus on what's being taught, how we're going to teach it. And sometimes that, I feel like for our teachers, that can go unrecognized for them, because it's just a number, really, but it's not. It represents so much more. And a couple more things I want to share, and I don't have a slide for them here, but I'm just going to tell you some stats or some facts about our teachers and our kids this past year. In this 2022-23 school year, so the one we just had, we had the highest percent ever passing the ELA SBA in the OSD. So the highest percent ever in the OSD on the SBA at 48%. Now, if you think about it, those kids were kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and third graders when they got sent home for COVID. So they learned how to read, or we figured out how to continue to push them even in that incredibly hard time, and then came out of it on the other side with the highest percent ever passing the ELA SBA. That number's nearly double the passing rate of our Othello peers. And so again, that's something to be incredibly proud of. In the time from 2019, so prior to the COVID to now, the state has dropped 9% in ELA, whereas our kids and our teachers have increased by 9%. So definitely closing the gap. The state's going the wrong direction, we're going the right direction. Nearly 20% more WAHITA students are passing the math, 20% more WAHITA students are passing the math SBA than our district peers, and we're continuing to outperform the state. Nearly 3 times as many language learners are passing the ELA SBA than our district peers. Twice as many language students are passing the math SBA than our district peers. And one stat that was really cool that doesn't show up anywhere on any website or anything, but there's a cohort of kids, there's about almost 40 of them at the middle school right now that passed out of 7th grade math. They got to skip 7th grade math and go straight to, I think it's 8th grade or algebra. I can't exactly remember the path, but out of those 38, 60% of them came from WAHITAs. And so there's some really, really cool things happening. And again, if you haven't been in our classrooms, I encourage you to come visit us, because our teachers are doing phenomenal things every single day with them. The kids and the teachers both have a growth mindset that today we're going to do it and tomorrow we're going to do it better. And so, yeah, with that said, I hope that we answered some of your questions about us. I hope you maybe even have some more for us, but go Hawks.
Go Hawks. So I'll start. I want to go back. I seriously want to go back and just see different grade levels, because like I mentioned to you at the site visit, that was probably the first time I've ever been to a site visit or to a classroom where I saw like instruction, real instruction happening. Every time that we've gone and walked into classrooms, they're just doing, Chromebook work, or they're working on a worksheet or something like that. And this time I got to see 4 different teachers teaching the same lesson in their own creative way, and that was just so unique and so powerful for us to see. And I just wish everybody can see that. Like I really truly do, because it was really powerful seeing it. And we got to watch the first grade teachers. I can only imagine what the rest of the teachers are doing. And so I would love to come back and just kind of see the other classrooms, especially in that time frame where we got to see them all doing the same thing in a different way. Some of them were more strict than the others, but they were all strict, but in their own way. And I don't know, I just loved it. I loved every single piece about it. I think your school is doing an amazing job. I was thinking about it as you were speaking, the importance of teacher presence, and like how impactful it may be for them to be absent, right? Not necessarily saying that, don't take any personal days, teachers, but I just realized, especially because we saw them all teaching the same thing. Imagine if one of them wasn't there, they have to catch up, right? And because I'm assuming substitute teachers aren't teaching what they're supposed to be teaching, but I mean, it was just really impactful. I mean, I can't say enough about it. It was really awesome.
Thank you, and you can come back anytime.
I had a couple of really interesting takeaways from our visit last Monday that I haven't noticed really be done at other schools that I've been in, and I didn't hear you talk about much. If you did, I missed it. Where you're using more of a standardized vocabulary for the teachers, and that's something I think when you grow up speaking English, you don't think that talking and chatting and speaking they all mean the same thing to you and I, but for a kid that doesn't know English, they don't understand that those words are synonyms. And so for your teachers, when we talked with them, and for all of the paras and the people that are helping those teachers, the way they're working together as a team is the culture of teamwork there you have is incredibly impactful for them to make sure that, yes, they're allowed to be individual teachers. And I was in the 3rd grade classroom, and it was really interesting to see the exact same questions and book and everything that they were reading in the different rooms done in a totally different way. The other piece I would like to just say about the looping that I thought was really impactful is not even just that you had the teachers kind of almost excited to do it, which is amazing, but the fact that they were able to come into school on day 1 and start their instruction. It made it easier for them because the lesson plans were there from the building that you guys have done the last few years. They knew the kids, so they knew exactly the relationships and the different things, and there wasn't that week or 2 or month or whatever really figuring out who really doesn't need to sit next to who so that things can cohesively work together. Knowing who was strong last year and who was weaker to make the right pairs for the day 1, everybody was teaching. And I don't think that's happening everywhere else because there's so many other moving parts when you have a brand new teacher in a brand new room and all brand new friends in your space. I do have a couple of questions. You said when you have subs come in, like you would have them go to grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do you not do the hawk walks for K1, 6, or was that just an example?
That was just an example.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody K6 and our specialists will walk at least 3 times, so they'll see anywhere from 9 to 12 instructional hours of their peers. And so, yeah, everybody gets to walk.
I love that you have a student feedback piece to the looping. I think that's really important. Have you guys ever done any kind of a question for students at the beginning, like how are you feeling about your year before the looping piece to know if it's in general more negative than it is now?
That's a piece that we picked up this year. Amy created a survey for us, and we use EdSite so we can instantly get all the information back for us. But just really trying to figure out our effect on the students, right? It would not make assumptions. We really didn't like the information that came out last year in the CEE survey with less than half the students enjoying coming to our school, which we were like, it didn't seem to vibe with what we were seeing. So we were like, instead of either dismissing that information or making an assumption about it, we got to get more information. So the survey we gave had 20 questions today, gave to 3rd through 6th grade, all kinds of different questions that we can gather information on. And so it's really at the starting point for us, but it's something that will definitely continue. Yeah.
I think that's great. One other thing I just would like to say that you guys have, we had one staff member say failure is not an option, which is just like a culture that you've built there, that the kids are first and failing them is not an option. I just want to say good job to you guys also that you are not giving failure as an option to the teachers. You are pushing them to do different things and expand their ability to teach so that they're not stuck in the same rut of the same thing that they've taught the same way year after year. You're really helping them to grow as teachers, and I think it's really incredible.
Thank you.
What I find amazing is that you're not just providing like such intense instructional learning, but also this amazing experience with your house system and your buddy system and all the things that you have going on that really provide like a social life for kids, for students to cultivate confidence and all of the things that you listed. But so it's not just that like you're killing it in the percentage department and like doing so great at grades, but also they have such a well-balanced education that is envious. I mean, it's just it makes me want to like go to school and be a teacher so I can work at Wahidas and like be a part of what you guys are doing. Like, I don't know, it's so infectious, and it's so admirable to the three of you that you have so many teachers, and everybody gets caught in the same rotation of I'm comfortable doing my job. I don't want to change things. You want to add more to my plate when I'm already exhausted. Everyone feels that in their jobs. I don't care what your job is. But especially with teachers, just like Pete was saying earlier, when you're so drained and you feel like I have nothing left to give, somehow the teachers at Wahidas seem to always dig a little deeper and they find room and they give it. And it's just like, it's so admirable. The work that the three of you are doing, the work that all of your teachers and paras do at Wahidas,
down to your custodian, who was my custodian in high school. And I would say he is equivalent to the lunch lady that you were talking about with that other student, to where every time I see him, I want to hug him because he's the nicest human on planet Earth. You just, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, like, sign me up and write the prescription, because you guys, like, you've got it. I don't know. It's magic. So,
Thank you.
well done.
So you never disappoint. Actually, Lindsay and I were really lucky. Our first year, we had a private tour because we had come at an odd time, and but I'd never done 4 of the rooms at the same time. We were always moving around, and that was more impactful to me, watching each one of those teachers and how they got their attention constantly. One of my very first site visits, Pete, I went with Pete. We came out of the room and he told us, this is what you need to do so that you don't leave one child left behind. Your child that's very vocal shouldn't be right there because at the front, because they're always vocal, and the one left behind. I didn't see anyone left behind because those teachers constantly, listen, what is this? And they were bringing in so much excitement. My own grandson told his mom that he couldn't talk to me because he was studying. I just needed a smile, but I didn't even get a smile. But it was so great to see how much they were sitting there and absorbing everything. And it was, I really liked being able to see 4 classes at the same time. And we thought we really had it great, didn't we, with the first graders? But
I loved Pullman. Again. Again.
Yeah.
Just like,
it was
awesome.
constant, all of them.
Yeah.
And you're right. Each one has their own personality, a quiet to a louder, but they all are successful. So it was a really great visit. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
If I could say one more thing, actually, I think I was debriefing after, and I was just like, man, Guajiris, I don't know, they must have some kind of hiring practice or something with their teachers, because how is it that every single teacher has the same mindset? That's crazy, right? Because sometimes, I mean, I'm sure you might have a few that you're still working on or something, I don't know, right? But at the same time, it really feels like everybody is just in it. And that just says a lot for HR and the hiring practices at that school, so.
I will say, when we go into classrooms, usually there's like all the kids are like, they're staring, right? Who's in here? And they totally have lost attention of what's happening in the classroom when these adults they don't know walk in. And we were in 3rd grade, and there was a little boy that I know there that goes to my kids' church group on Wednesday night, and I saw him 2 days later, or Wednesday night, and I said, oh, I saw you on Monday, and you were reading about Mr. Fox and beans and whatever else was in that story, and he was like, I didn't even see you. Like, they didn't notice or were not fazed by us being there at all. They were focused on their lessons and still doing what they were doing, even though we came in and were watching them.
I think that goes to the whole feedback thing, that, like, we aren't the first adults that have gone in to watch their classrooms. Like, they're constantly getting that with either peers or the admin. Like, they have people constantly coming in to watch, which is great, amazing.
Well, I missed it, but
You really missed out, Ken.
yeah.
It was
But I
great.
do almost get a daily report from our grandkids, and it's always positive. They just absolutely love it there. You could tell you've not only created a culture of teaching and learning, you've created a culture of family there, with the #1 priority is the kids. And you could really see that in all the activities that you are doing with the kids. You're making it fun for them. You're making it so they want to be there every day. And really appreciate that. It's been great to see what you have did, and with the numbers, the outcome, and it shows in the scores. The kids are there to learn and making it fun doing it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things before they step away. Number one, Justin will remember this, and maybe Amy as well. Sandy used to say, what's the best that could happen? And sometimes it rose to the level of, are you going to say that again? But when I think about what they took on with looping, that mentality and mindset, that phrase comes to mind. Like, let's try it. What's the best that can happen? And then we'll reassess. So I really appreciate that mentality there. A second point around feedback and the number of times that Justin and Seamus are in classrooms, and last year with Christina Benjamin, how often they were in classrooms, and kids are used to that and teachers are used to that. Administrator to teacher feedback. The other part that is really effective at Wahidas is teacher feedback to the admin. So when Justin talks about sustainability, he really is saying, if I ask you to do this, can you do it? And teachers will tell him, that's too much, not this, maybe next time. So that feedback goes both ways. And I don't think that teachers having a willingness to do that shouldn't be overlooked. They're really good at it. A third point around, if you look at can we go back to the PowerPoint just for a moment? Go up a couple slides to where like it has intended outcomes. What I think about when I see that kind of language and that kind of specificity, it's the lucky, leading, learning, and losing framework that we've shared with the board, which is you're either going to be learning or leading because you know that the actions you're taking are going to result in this. They're predictive. If we do this, this will happen. And that's where we want our schools to be, in those two quadrants, either learning and trying or leading. And so I really appreciate the connection there to intended outcomes and then what they're going to do. And the last one is around what you all called school culture or a sense of teamwork, and Justin framed it as collective teacher efficacy. And then Dalia touched a little bit on sort of hiring practices and whatnot. Go to the second to last slide. That one. So somewhere in there of those 180 schools is average. And on either side of that average or midpoint, people are doing about the same thing. If you go to the schools at the bottom end or the top end, they're also doing the same thing. But not all those schools are working in the same way. And so I think that idea, when people study collective efficacy in schools, they didn't go looking for that. They went looking for people on either end of that spectrum to learn what they do. And so I appreciate your understanding and observation of it as community members, but I want to reinforce from an educator how special that work is there that's happening, and this is evidence of it. So thank you all tonight for sharing the story a little bit and for recognizing the students and staff and your hard work.
Okay, next thing, E1, policy review. We have a few more of the 6,000s at our first reading. So if you get a chance to read over those, if there's any feedback, or you could get back before they're back on the second reading. Go on to upcoming events. I think we just need to, for October 30th, add the interviews on there. Is there any other additions to that calendar?
For tomorrow, does it start at 3 or 3:30?
The actual Zoom session? The Zoom session starts at 3:30. We would like the community there a little bit early so we can get you set up in your room. We can give you the parameters, just so it starts on time.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's happening here? No, it's at MMS.
That'll be at
MS.
McFarland.
Is that for all of us or just,
No, we
Just-
didn't. We can't
right.
have a quorum at that
Okay.
session, so it's the strategic planning
Okay.
activity. Yeah.
just want to make sure.
Okay, if there's no more to add to that, then we'll go to the board's self-assessment of the meeting.
Two excellent presentations.
I really appreciate having some of the operational stuff brought to us, because it's something you don't really get a glimpse into with the normal day-to-day, and I think that was I mean, Wahidas was really impactful too, but the food and nutrition presentation was extremely impactful for me.
Yeah. I know operational stuff is out of our wheelhouse and not necessarily what we're supposed to be involved in. But we probably get the most questions about that kind of stuff from
Yeah.
community members. So it helps to at least be in the know and powered with some talking points and some information to give the community. So I really appreciate it.
Mandy was a rock star. I can only imagine
Yeah.
what her presentations on the state level looked like.
The student recognition. It's
Yeah.
always really nice when we can have
Yes.
student recognition at this meeting.
Go for it.
I'd also like to recognize Sebastian for bringing a new idea
Yes.
as well for a way to engage students.
I really like the discussion you guys had towards the student representative reports. I feel like we should have more of that when we include the student representative reports about how we should switch the board discussion with the student rep reports. So just in case you guys can talk about that after.
Agreed.
Also, one last thing. For the solution about having students have that one person to talk to, Jaden and I can definitely brainstorm ideas to fix that problem since we're the student representatives and we want change in the school.
Great.
Good.
Anything else?
Very well planned agenda.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, Sharon. You used to say that every time for like a solid year. And now
you jumped ahead.
You know, I've really enjoyed this way of assessment since
Agreed.
we've started it.
Yep.
You could see that list is getting longer and longer on that
Yep.
side every time at all of our meetings. And I really thoroughly enjoy that.
Yeah. I know that we're a little longer than we have been in the past, I don't know, few months of meetings, but the presentations were so important tonight. Not that they're not every board meeting, because honestly, I feel like our board meetings have been maybe boring to others, but they should have been here a while ago. You know what I mean? They've been so good, full of really good information. I don't know, just, I mean, I know that leads off of the well-planned agenda, but in all seriousness, thank you so much for all that you do for us and for Marissa, for all that you do for us and everything that you have prepared for us when we show up, and everything's organized and very well thought out and very well planned, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much.
So I'm not sure if this is really about the board meeting, but we notice things like this, but I have been noticing a principal in our audience for a couple board meetings, and so I really appreciate that. I notice it.
Yep.
So
I have.
Agreed.
I think that's great that there's a principal here the whole meeting, because I know that these meetings can be long.
We don't often have anything on what to change, and I know why the band wasn't here, but it's always so much better when we get to have students here for recognition, so hopefully next time.
Okay, since there's no further, the board will recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session. We'll meet back in Pete's office in 3 minutes.